Hello there everyone! In this video I'm going to explain to you what is alpha lock and a clipping mask and what are the differences of these two tools in Procreate and how you can get the most out of these tools when you are working. Okay, so as you can see I have two different simple shapes of a monstera leaf here. Don't mind these ones, these are just the letters up here, and there's a texture that we are going to use a bit later. So right now, let's just start with alpha lock. So this is this layer. This is a simple single layer of pixels. And I want you to think about the screen as the infinite ether of pixels, okay? And into this infinite ether of pixels, I have drawn this shape. Now this is open. If I choose a brush and now I'm drawing, okay, into this ether of pixels, what I have drawn over this shape is going to be part of the pixels that are full, okay? So as you can see, what I have drawn is part of this layer. If I lock this layer, so I lock these pixels, and I hit that layer and click alpha lock or use the gesture of 2-finger swipe on that layer, it will be alpha locked. If you can see, there's a checked background behind this layer, which means it is locked. So if I go inside with the brush I had before, I am not drawing anything onto this layer. If I change the color though, I can paint within the logged in pixels, okay? So as you can see, now I'm drawing, but only inside the logged pixels. Now, when it is good to do so, when we are shading, for example, and when we are not planning on changing what we are doing right now, and this will make sense in a second. So let me just choose a color for shading. I will choose a darker color and a shader brush, and now I'm on this layer and I can just go inside this shape and add a little bit of shading into it. Can you see that? I will just add some color variation as well. I can add textures with a texture brush too. So now I have a little bit of shading, a little bit of texture here, but only within that layer. Okay, I'm going to choose a lighter color and lighten up maybe these edges here, create a little bit of gradation. Make it even smaller and add some light into this part, maybe even here. And it is good to alpha lock a layer when you want to add maybe details or line work so that you are not drawing outside of a shape. And just to draw this middle thing here. Okay, so it looks good, but it has disadvantages. So for the shading, I think that's a step that you are doing for a fix. So as it is a fixed step, you are not going to change the shading later. You can add these details on a layer on top, but if you are just drawing into an alpha locked shape, you are not going to be able to, you know, adjust these details, for example. So if I think that, oh my god, I messed this part up, I cannot just erase. If I erase, I get all the pixels that are there. If I want to repaint, I can, but I will miss the shading that I already done there. So it is really good to just keep maybe mainly your shading and the textures in an alpha locked shape. Let me just show you a texture thing. So here's a texturizer, and I will just choose a very neon color, and I will just go through this little shape, and I added some toxic feels into the shape. Let me clear it a bit. Oops. That's color variation. It looks really good. And now I can create another layer and just choose my sketching pencil and do my line work again. And I can just adjust it if I mess up. I have it on a new layer, so I can just erase from it, or just delete it, or just change the color that I have just added. Okay? Alright, so this is one monstera leaf, and I will just adjust it here. Okay. Alright, and I just move on to the clipping mask one. So if you want more flexibility, clipping masks give you that. So I have this simple open layer, right? So let's return to the ether and disregard this part, okay? So you have these pixels where you have just painted in, and we are not going to alpha lock it, but I'm going to create another layer on top, hit that, and hit clipping mask. Now everything that I'm drawing into this another ether about this main shape is going to be clipped onto this shape. So as if cut out, okay? Let me just show it to you. So I'm choosing this dark color and the shader brush again. I'm at the clipping mask. I'm going to do the exact same process. So I'm shading. I'm putting all these little shading pixels onto another layer, to another ether. I don't know why I love this word so much lately, but it just helps me to explain the whole concept better. Okay, so now I have my shading, and if I just click that clipping mask, I can move it around, okay? This might be good for textures that I'm going to show you in a second. Or for the shading, I don't think it is good because you are purposely shading to the pixel or to the place that you want the shading to be at, right? So I would say alpha lock the base shape and shade it, and then put the textures and the details onto clipping masks, okay? So if I'm creating another layer, I can do it, make it a clipping mask again, and it will not clip onto a clipping mask, but it will clip onto this base shape. As you can see, here are these little arrows that are showing that these are clipping masks. So if I want to add, let's say, light, again with this shader, I can do so into this other clipping mask. Now I have kind of everything on a different layer. And it gives me the advantage that I can change maybe the color of them, okay? So if I go to the shading thing and go to adjustments, select the hue, saturation, brightness, I can change the hue of the shading. I will make it a bit more blue, and I will go to the light, again, adjustments, hue, saturation, brightness, maybe make it even lighter, or again, a different hue. I can play with colors this way, or I can play with the saturation. So it is going to be a little bit more yellowish. So you can play with colors. It gives you more flexibility and doesn't ruin the base work that you have done, maybe with the base shape that you have here. Also, if you create another layer and make it a clipping mask, and let's add the detail with this sketching pencil, I will not be able to draw outside of the shape. Can you see that? So I can just add more easily the line work that I want. Okay, so these are the main differences. What I wanted to also show you is this texture. I can clip a texture onto a shape. So this is just a watercolor texture that I have painted onto paper and just made a photo of it. It looks wonderful. If I'm placing this over this base shape, it already automatically clipped itself into that shape. But let me just show you how you can move it around. So if you move around this texture, this is the advantage of having this another ether over the kind of base shape that can be actually alpha logged, to be honest. That is also a way. But you can maybe choose a part of a texture that you like more. So you are just placing a texture there. You can add blending mode into it, or just, you know, also go and play with the hue, saturation, brightness. I can desaturate it or choose different color. Wow, this looks so cool. I can maybe add this texture over it and create something very interesting. So these are the main differences between the alpha lock and the clipping mask. Let me just summarize it very quickly. So you have a base shape, and in the ether of pixels that is open. So if you paint onto this ether, everything will be counted into that shape, okay, or into that layer. If you alpha lock these pixels that are filled in any transparency, so this means that if I just put a pixel next to this full pixel that is not 100% transparent, it will count into these pixels, if that makes sense. So I can lock these pixels so that everything that I do on that layer counts towards that layer. So I can use that for shading and everything that I want to be like steady and fixed there, and I don't want the flexibility of changing it, okay? So if I'm very, very confident in drawing these lines into that shape, that is totally okay, but it loses kind of flexibility. But that can be an advantage, okay, in a process. With a clipping mask, you have a base shape and you are layering another ethers over that shape, and they are clipped or cut out onto that base shape that is on the bottom. It is great if you are adding textures because you can move them around and gives you more flexibility. It is good if you want to be able to erase what you are drawing over this base layer, and if you want to, you know, change colors and yeah, simply just have more flexibility. So I'm using both of these tools in Procreate in my illustration work. I mostly use Alpha Lock for shading and clipping mask for textures and details, so that I know that if I mess up, I have the possibility to make it right. Okay, I hope that you found this video useful. If you did, hit like and subscribe. If you want freebies, go to my website and download my brushes and color palettes. And if you want to learn more from me, head over to Skillshare, where I have 60+ classes on different kind of topics. And make sure to follow me on social media to stay up to date. It was a pleasure to have you here, and yeah, happy creating!